everybody, it's Sam Amico, Hoops Wire live on 330 to go. How you doing? Easter weekend, wonderful weather outside. If you're watching this live Friday, I don't know if you're watching it on Saturday what the weather would be like, but by all accounts, it's supposed to be rainy. So enjoy it today, and make sure you have this on your phone as we speak, or on your laptop, whichever you prefer. You can watch it on many devices. We are here. The NBA playoffs have begun. Saturday, there's games all day. I believe starting at noon or 1 o'clock. And that would be, I believe, the Pacers and the Bucks. And we also have 3 other games tomorrow, with the night game on ABC, of course, being the Lakers and the Minnesota Timberwolves, which I expect will be a pretty good series. The Lakers finished with the 3rd seed in the West, and the Timberwolves with the 6th seed in the West, as you can see there by our chalkboard. That's been, I'm sad to say I had no hand in that, but it looks good. And that's probably why it looks good, because I had no hand in it. But, of course, the Cavaliers, Sunday night, open the playoffs. If you're watching this live, we don't know who their opponent's going to be yet. It's either going to be the Miami Heat or the Atlanta Hawks, depending on who wins Friday night's game. People ask me if I have a preference, or if the Cavs might have a preference. I doubt it. Probably the Hawks. They've been very sporadic since trading DeAndre Hunter to the Cavs in February and acquiring George Niang and Karis LeVert. I think that series would be more fun because of George Niang and Karis LeVert. And, of course, Quinn Snyder, the Hawks coach, was Donovan Mitchell's coach in Utah. So I think that, just the natural connections would make it kind of cool. Miami always plays their best basketball under Eric Spoelstra right now. They went into Chicago the other night in a play-in elimination game and blew the Bulls out of the gym. So I think that would be the less ideal opponent, the probably more difficult opponent. I think the best thing to happen is Orlando winning their first play-in game, and that way the Cavs avoid a matchup with them. Again, I'm not worried about any of these teams, but it's nice that Orlando, which defends the three-point line better than any team in the NBA, is opening against the three-point shooting Boston Celtics. And that's how that's the Celtics' main success. Orlando's got great size. And obviously Paolo Banchero, the team star, Franz Wagner, the second star, and Wendell Carter Jr., and Jonathan Isaac, who comes off the bench. So Orlando's got great size. That won't impact them. They probably have the best defensive guard in the league in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. The Magic's issue always, when they're going up against the Celtics, their issue is, number one, lack of playoff experience, although they have some from last year against the Cavs. And, of course, they struggle to score. But they will defend you. They play playoff-style basketball all year. Very well coached by former Cavs assistant Jamal Mosley. So I think that series could be decent if Orlando brings their A game. Cavaliers, long as they bring their A game, it won't matter. I think that they're going to have an ideal matchup, whether that's Miami or Atlanta. Either way, I don't want to make the podcast outdated, the show outdated by tonight at 10, but I think that the Miami Heat will win that game. Even though it's in Atlanta, the Hawks just seem kind of like they're melting down a little bit. Did not look good against the Magic for most of the game. They were down 17, came back, cut it to 3, and then fell apart after that. Trae Young got thrown out. So if I had to take a wild guess, I would say the Heat will be the Cavs' first round opponent. As we put on hoopswire.com today, Kevin Love, old friend Kevin Love, has left the Miami Heat, at least temporarily. He won't be playing Friday night. If they play Sunday, we don't know. Obviously, Kevin's at the end of his career, not a huge part of what they're doing, but still plays a little bit. But he's left amid ongoing family reasons. So hopefully everything's okay with Kevin, and he's able to play if the Cavs do end up playing the Heat in the first round. So as for the Cavs, all week has been, just, I find it incredibly odd because they've just been preparing and practicing all week. The key is right now, as Kenny Atkinson will tell you, we're entering the playoffs totally healthy. Donovan Mitchell missed the last couple of weeks with an ankle issue. If those were playoff games, he would have played, but the Cavs had already wrapped up the number 1 seed. There was no need for him to play. I think one of the top 3 biggest wins of the season was last week when the Cavs, with nothing to play for, went into New York and beat the Knicks. It was Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and really mostly the role players beyond that. And they went into New York, and that was a game that the Knicks kind of wanted. They had to win that to secure the number 3 seed, and they still ended up getting it, even though they lost that game. So, I know that the Knicks and their fans were wildly disappointed to lose to the Cavs in New York when the Cavs didn't have Donovan Mitchell, and Jared Allen only played sparingly. So Darius Garland really came through in that game, and that's what the Cavs are going to need in the playoffs. This has been a year of rise from Darius Garland and Evan Mobley. Both of those guys have taken their games to another level. That will need to continue in the postseason, and we'll also need to see the role players, the bench players, the reserves, Ty Jerome, DeAndre Hunter, Sam Merrill, Isaac Okoro, Dean Wade. The Cavs are going to need at least 2 of those guys every game to step in and help relieve the starters so you don't lose much off the bench. Sometimes the rotation is going to be a little tighter. I just named 5 guys. Maybe only 3 of them will play. Maybe not, but 3 of them may play more than 20 minutes. And the top 2 of that group will be Ty Jerome and DeAndre Hunter. We may even see a little Tristan Thompson, depending on matchups. So, this is a whole entirely different season. The good news is the Cavs have home court advantage throughout the entire Eastern Conference. So whoever they play in the East, they get past round 1, which I'm assuming they will do. They'd have either the Pacers or the Bucks in round 2. Again, home court advantage. I think that's going to go a long way. Should they face the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, they would have home court advantage there too. So, you're still, what you want to do, what Kenny Atkinson has stressed is we need to win, even though all it will take is winning all our home games and we'll be in the finals. We need to win some road games. You want to make short work of some of these series. If you play the Atlanta Hawks and you win both games in Cleveland, you want to go to Atlanta and win game 3. Game 4, whatever. But game 3 you want to get, and you want to make these series as short as possible so that you can rest and heal in between every series. So I'll say this much. There was a stretch there where we kind of were like, well, the Cavs have lost 4 straight. They've just kind of been going through the motions. I liked what I saw from them in the final games that the regulars did play. I thought that they looked, solid and even better than usual. I don't think that they were defending. They weren't showing the defense that we're going to see in the postseason. They're kind of going through the motions once they really had the Eastern Conference number 1 seed wrapped up. So I think that we'll see improvements there. But, more than anything, it's just about doing what they do when they went 15-0 to start the season, when they went 12, they had a 12-game winning streak later in the season, then 16-game winning streak later in the season. If those are the Cavs we see, which I suspect going in that will be, they'll get to the finals. They'll beat Boston. They'll get to the finals. If that's the team we see. It's really going to come. Offense, never any problem. They're going to score 100-plus points a game. In the playoffs, you score 100-plus points in the game, you're giving yourselves a chance to win. It's all going to come down to how well are we, if you're the Cavs, how well are we defending, particularly the perimeter. If there's been a small Achilles heel in a 64-18 season, It's been their defense of the perimeter has been very inconsistent. Mid-range, under the basket, nice job for the most part, but it's been that kind of defending the three-point line. And obviously Boston's a great three-point shooting team. Atlanta and Miami can both hit threes. So you've got to be able to have your hand up. One thing I've noticed following the NBA and covering it since 2007 is when you challenge a shot, when you just have your hand up, it seems like 60% of the time, 70% of the time, maybe even more, the opponent misses. So it's all about getting out there and challenging shots and closing out on shooters. Cavs went through a stretch where they did an excellent job at that. They went through a stretch where they did a very poor job at that. But 64-18, hard to complain. First of all, two things. Number one, the Cavs and the Thunder both had the number one seed, right? In the Thunder in the Western Conference. Why does the number one seed have to wait all week to find out who they're playing? I know Adam Silver. I don't mind the play-in tournament, but I think that somehow, some way they should be able to. I don't know how you do it, but the number one seed in the conference shouldn't have to wait all week to figure out who their opponent is. The Cavs are practicing with no idea who they're going to be playing. They'll finally find out Saturday, for Saturday's practice. They'll find out Friday night for Saturday's practice. I'm sure the last 2 or 3 days the Cavs have been preparing for both teams, but meanwhile, the Indiana Pacers, the Milwaukee Bucks, the New York Knicks, the Detroit Pistons, who finished 6th and open against the Knicks, those teams have known all week who they're playing and who they're preparing for. And they did not finish with the number one seed. So you're almost punished in your week of practice if you're the number one seed. You have no idea who you're playing until 2 days before the game. You get 1 day of practice. Okay, we got to prepare for the Hawks. And you know what? Quite frankly, that's all it takes. It just seems weird to me that the Thunder are in the same boat. Mavericks are playing the Grizzlies tonight. The winner of that plays the Thunder. Neither the Thunder nor the Cavs have any idea who they're going to play to open the playoffs in 2 days. Thankfully, the Cavs open at 7 o'clock Sunday night, 7 p.m., Rocket Arena, Game 1. And I'm glad it's later because obviously there's Easter festivities during the day, and I don't have to miss some of those. My family, of course, my big one, at my sister's house with everybody there, I believe they scheduled that at 5 o'clock, probably knowing that the Cavs would play at 7 and I couldn't be there. That's okay. I'll make up for it by eating way too much at the game. That was the first point. The second point, I totally forget because I'm old and have no idea what I'm doing. But I think, I know what I was going to say. Game 2 is Wednesday. So Game 1, Sunday night, Game 2, Wednesday. I was all worried about parking for Wednesday because the Guardians are playing the Yankees Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Well, guess what? We lucked out again because the Guardians game against the Yankees on Wednesdays at 1 o'clock. So hopefully those guys will all be gone by the time I get to the Cavs game, I guess like 4:30 or so. So with that in mind, there's I think with the playoffs, you really just keep doing what you're doing when you were at your best. And that's Kenny Atkinson's message. It's so interesting to me that in training camp, the first day we interviewed Kenny Atkinson, and his first comments were, the regular season's all about preparing for the playoffs. This team has not played its best basketball in the playoffs. They always play their best, or at least, since Donovan Mitchell's been there in the 2 years Donovan Mitchell's been there before this season, he said they played their best before the All-Star break. And, we've got to be ready and playing our best basketball in the playoffs. So that's been the message from the very moment Kenny Atkinson got the job. And I know I just now remembered what else I was going to say. The Cavs finished 64-18. What an amazing, fun regular season. To me, if you're not going to win the championship, an amazing regular season is the second best thing. I know some people say, well, finishing second in the finals would be the second best thing. Yeah, that's a hard point to argue, but to me, the regular season is the longest chunk of year, right? The NBA season, the longest chunk of the season is the regular season. This is the third time. The Cavs have been around since 1970. This is the third time that they've won 60 or more games. Just the third time in franchise history. Okay? They've won 60 or more games this season for the first time without LeBron James on the team. This has been a banner year. A year like we haven't seen before. Without LeBron James on the team, we've never seen anything like this from a Cavs franchise. Brad Daugherty was at the game a couple of weeks ago, and I he's obviously working the games for FanDuel Sports Network, and I said to him, "Boy, you guys never won 60 games, huh? You know, Brad Daugherty, Mark Price, John Hot Rod Williams, Larry Nance Sr., Lenny Wilkins' coach, Craig Elo. Said, you guys." And they didn't. They won 57 games twice, but they never hit 60. When I mentioned that to Brad, he said, well, yeah, if I'd have gotten the ball more, we would have. So, and of course, I shared that with Mark Price. Speaking of, I'll be on the Mark Price podcast. We record Monday morning. I believe it comes out Tuesday of next week. So after game one, yours truly will be the special guest on the Mark Price podcast. I lead all guests. This will be my 8th appearance. I am ahead of Brent Price, who just happens to be Mark's brother, who also played in the NBA with the Washington Bullets. And I like to remind Brent that I'm not even family, and I've been on there more than you. So, when I've gone on that much, in fact, Brad Daugherty said, they're paying you for that, right? And I was like, well, no, it's a podcast appearance. Going on as a guest. It's great for my website. I get to promote my website. I get to, talk about my faith, talk about the Cavs, all that stuff. And Brad Daugherty's, of course, line was, well, you can't buy bread by going to the grocery store and saying, yeah, I don't have any money, but I was on the Mark Price podcast. And I said, you know what? I don't know that that's true. I might try that at some point. So anyway, Tuesday morning, Mark Price and Aaron Conrad, the host of the Mark Price podcast, who's been on this show before, we'll be recapping game one and looking ahead to other potential playoff series, as well as discussing, I'm sure, what happens over this weekend. 4 games on Monday, playoff games, 4 playoff games on Tuesday. I like the opening day of the NBA playoffs as much as I do the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. There's always an upset. Somebody in there is going to lose. If I have to make a pick of who's going to lose the first game that's favored in the series, I'm going to go with the Lakers, because I think the Minnesota Timberwolves with Anthony Edwards, who went to the Western Conference Finals last year, yes, they traded away Karl Anthony Towns. Now they have Julius Randle. But I think that Anthony Edwards, other than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Nikola Jokic, I think he's the best postseason threat in the playoffs in the Western Conference. He showed us. I mean, you think about last year how the Timberwolves came back and beat the Nuggets in Game 7 in Denver to go to the Western Conference Finals. And I think that Chris Finch, who's the Timberwolves coach, is very underrated. If I have to pick an upset in Game 1 of any of these games, I think that'll be it. The Pacers-Bucks series, people aren't talking about. I think that could be, that's a 4-5 matchup. I think that could be an amazing series. I think that could go 7 games, which would be great for the Cavs, assuming the Cavs get out of the first round, right? Because they play the Pacers and Bucks, and that series goes 7. Whoever wins it will be nice and tired. Pacers have home court advantage. They're the 4th seed, but I think that could go either way. We'll see what the Bucks have done after acquiring Kyle Kuzma at the trade deadline for this very reason, adding him to Giannis Antetokounmpo. And Damian Lillard sounds like he's practicing after having a blood clot, so he's almost back. I don't think he's going to play in game 1, but could be a heck of a series. And those two teams do not like each other. They've had, all kinds of little on-court spats and shoves and trash talking. So that could be a very good series. Pacers and the Bucks, 2 teams that everybody certainly ignores on my website. Whenever we post about them, we get like 7 clicks apiece. But I think that series is going to be dynamite. If you're an NBA fan, that would be a series to watch. The problem is nobody can sit around and watch 8 NBA games all weekend. I run an NBA website and I can't do it, nor would I want to, because I'd be sitting there watching the game thinking, I should probably get out and exercise a little. I should probably spend some time with the family. And a thought I have every day, I should probably eat a vegetable. Those are kind of the things that ruminate my mind while I'm working. Like, can you survive off of? And clearly you can, because I've done it this long. Apple Jacks and protein shakes. Apples, don't Apple Jacks count as fruit? Anyway, if my mother's watching, she's probably like, what's wrong with this kid? Of course, she's been asking that for a long time. It is much better to be second in the regular season than second in the finals. Thank you. I agree. I think that the regular season, I think going back a ways here, and really my buddy put this in my head. And despite the fact that he's a Steelers fan, he's my buddy. And I forgive him because he's actually from Pittsburgh. So, I always tell him in Pittsburgh, they call it the Burg. But here, we call it the Pits. So, anyway, so we're going way back. And he says, the Steelers went in Ben Roethlisberger's rookie year. I think that was 2004, maybe. He said the Steelers went 15-1 and they lost in the playoffs to the Patriots, as the Steelers always do. And he said, I said, wow, 15-1, nothing to show for it. And he said, no. Regular season full of fun. It was a regular season full of fun. What a blast that was. Yeah, it ended in disappointment, but guess what? It only doesn't end in disappointment for one team, right? Team wins the title. Everybody else, it's like, disappointment. And then there's wailing and gnashing of teeth for the team that finishes second, gets to the finals and doesn't win it. The fan base is like, okay, we got to change everything. But the reality is only one team wins the title. So the second best thing to me, yes, is just a regular season full of fun. And how much fun was this for Cavs fans? I've never had, like I said, I've been covering the team full time since 2007. I've never had more fun covering a team. Never. Even the LeBron team that I covered that went 66-16, there were little dramas. There was, I don't want to say infighting because that's strong, but there were little dramas. LeBron has said, one time we were at practice, and I don't remember, it was like one of the few times that I ever just talked to LeBron James one-on-one. It was after practice, and we were just sitting there shooting the breeze, and he shakes his head and laughs, and he says, at this time, this is, I think after the championship season, 2016-17, he says, wherever I go, drama follows. And he kind of laughed. And of course, me being the smart aleck, I go, yeah, that's true. Now, who's the common denominator? He just shook his head and walked away. The other time, of course, when I talked to LeBron one-on-one was when I was recording a video after a game, and I actually had it. I was holding it up and recording the video, and LeBron walked out of the locker room. And this was after a game. They had won. He was in high spirits. and I was standing outside the locker room doing my video like this, and LeBron walks out and he says, "Hey," and I know I've told this story, but it's worth reliving. He says, "What are you doing there?" And I looked at him and I said, "Well, I was recording a video for Fox Sports Ohio at the time." And he was like, "Oh, sorry. Do you want me to hold the phone?" And I said, "No. As honorable as a suggestion that would be, all I ask is that you not talk to me while I'm recording video." So he was like, "Oh, all right, sorry." So he was fun in that sense. LeBron knows that I'm really, now that Brian Windhorst has hit the big time. Actually, he's hit the big time like a decade ago. LeBron knows that I'm the only really guy who was covering the team at the time from Akron, and we were born in the same hospital. But me, of course, about 117 years before he was. So anyway, he always liked to, we liked to rib each other back in the day. I still talk to Rich Paul occasionally, not as much as I did when he was in Cleveland, but Rich's office was right across from the Fox Sports Ohio office, where I used to work, and I would run into him there. And Rich would tell me stuff that he liked or didn't like that I wrote on the website. And I said, I can't believe you read. And he said, "You know what? You were doing this when I was a kid. I grew up reading your stuff before I ever even dreamed of becoming LeBron James' agent." And I said, "Well, that's very flattering, but also, again, reminds me of my age, that I've been doing this since Rich Paul was in middle school." So yeah, it's always cool to see the people that pass you up in life, and Rich is one of them, and I'm sure Brian Windhorst I would have to consider another. So, well, now that story time's over, I actually have to do. For those of you watching live, it's a little after 1 o'clock. At 1:20, I'll be going on with Baskin and Phelps on 92.3 The Fan, which is probably me just saying the same things I say here, except for they're going to ask me questions. They're going to argue with each other. I always tell them, I don't know how many of you have seen the Muppets, but I always tell them they're like the two old guys in the balcony that just gripe at each other and gripe about everything. So I'm happy to go on the show and be the happy face. But game 1, Sunday night, Cavaliers versus who knows. All we know is that it'll be a team with a nickname that starts with H, and a team that is located in a nice weather area, the Atlanta Hawks or the Miami Heat. I say Cavs in 5. Either team, Cavs in 5. If it's the Hawks, it could be 4, but I'm going to say Cavs in 5. I think there may be one of those games on the road where they just don't have it, and the other team really brings it. I could be wrong. And by I could be wrong, I would say don't bet on it. But so I think that's going to be the case. Pacers, Bucks, we should all be keeping a close eye on that, because one of those two teams are going to be Cavs' second round opponent. The Knicks, Pistons in the Eastern Conference. I'm going to go with the Knicks. Obviously, they're favored. The Pistons are new to the playoffs. What a great turnaround J.B. Bickerstaff and the Pistons have done. Former Cavs guard Trajan Langdon, first year as the front office guy in Detroit. Those two, with Langdon and J.B. Bickerstaff and Cade Cunningham, the point guard, coming up and becoming an all-pro type of player. It's really led to a franchise turnaround. You think about the Pistons last year, won 14 games, lost 28 in a row. This year, 6th seed in the Eastern Conference playoffs going against the Knicks. So I think it's going to be the Celtics Knicks in the second round. Let the Orlando Magic and the New York Knicks beat up on the Boston Celtics, and should everything hold true to form, Cavs and the Celtics get to these finals. And hopefully Boston at that point would be much more beat up than the Cavaliers. So, all right, well, I'm losing my voice even though I have a bowl of coffee, and we're gonna be back next Friday with a couple of playoff games under our belt. So we'll see how things are going then. And thanks so much for joining, and we will talk to you next week. That's really good. Boy, you found that fast.
I got